This is my Avatar Season 2 review from a member request from Zeyga, so thanks for that. Let's get into it.
Avatar Season 2 I thought was much better than Season 1 overall, but I thought the lower points were actually a little bit worse. And that's more to do with the fact that the season was good and very direct and story oriented. So the filler episodes in this one felt really unnecessary and kind of like they were just trying to fill runtime. I think the first season gets away with it a bit more because it usually had a message in the filler and you're getting to know the characters still, so you're learning new things about them. But by season 2, we know who they are. So you don't really get too much from these random, maybe 4 or 5 episodes. But overall, the season was really good. It took a very story-oriented, world-building direction. And I felt like it felt much more adult than season 1. The goal of the season that we see right away is that we want Aang to learn earthbending from a master earthbender. And this is pretty much the focal point of the entire season. It stays on track almost the whole time. And for the most part, I think it's pretty well handled. If I had a couple world-building complaints, one would be a hangover from season 1. He only has a couple months to master all the other bending types, because I feel like that kind of undermines the skill that the other benders have, because they're experts in their field also. I think the logic there is that once you've mastered one type of bending, it's more a matter of just learning application and not relearning how to bend each time. But I think the show probably would have benefited if he had maybe even just a couple of years to learn these different types of bending. I'm sure this choice was made so that he could stay a kid. And the other one is more of just a broad thing with the earthbending. And with the earthbending, I feel like they had to kind of nerf it because, you know, when you throw a rock at somebody, a lot of the defense of this is to just punch it. And even throwing a small rock at somebody, like a fist-sized rock, would really hurt someone, or you wouldn't be able just to stop it by punching it or kicking it. And that's more of just a broad thing with the world building in general. But overall, the world building this season I thought was really cool. I liked how they showed the Earth Kingdom using their stuff for a lot of day-to-day things. Like the train and the fact that they struggle with metal, so the firebending nation makes metal weapons, handcuffs, restraints, and all that. All that stuff I liked. One other thing with the world building that I thought was a pretty big mistake that they introduced in this season, I haven't seen season 3 yet, so I'm just assuming it's not going to come up again, is they introduced brainwashing. And I feel like this is a really big mistake to make because when you have Ba Sing Se resisting for 100 years and they're capable of brainwashing, it seems like they would use that to capture random firebenders, or if they could get somebody higher up, brainwash them and then undermine the Fire Nation. Maybe this will come up next season. I'm assuming not because the story is pretty Aang focused. But that to me was a pretty big mistake to introduce that kind of thing into your world. For this season, I thought Zuko was the highlight again. His arc was really good, although I wasn't a huge fan of that last episode. And the episode that was just him and his exploration of kind of seeing what the Fire Nation has done to everyone else, I really enjoyed. Him having to live with the consequences of this century-long war that they're the aggressors in. And then his entire arc of pushing away from his father and becoming his own man was really good. I really like the introduction of Toph. She seems to be pretty Daredevil inspired to me. Even the way they animate her senses working where she can feel the vibrations and stuff. I don't know. That's just how she felt to me. But I thought she had a good dynamic with the group. And it's always a risk when you bring in a new character to your group because there's a chance that they're annoying or they just kind of throw off the dynamic or they're just unlikable or whatever the case is. They don't really add anything new to the group. But I thought she was a good addition. And I liked what she brought to the group. I also really liked that they gave Aang a little bit of a dark arc in here where he's really pissed off about Appa and he's just frustrated at everything. It's nice to see him, I would say maybe for the first time, really looking and feeling just overwhelmed by the whole thing. I know he struggled some in the first season with everything that's happened and kind of his past and all that. I thought that was a smart choice to make him have this part where he looks like he's just done with all of it and he's kind of losing control emotionally because he is a kid. I think it's important to have those moments. He's not some 40-year-old battle-hardened warrior. He's a child who kind of got stuck with this burden. And I think that this little arc with him missing Appa really does a good job of showing that. So I said there were a couple episodes that were misses for me. Episode 3 and 4 were 2 of them. And I was actually a little bit worried. I was like, uh-oh. Everyone said it got a lot better. We had 2 good episodes and then 2 kind of They weren't terrible, but episode 3 really felt like a missed opportunity because Aang and this earthbender guy had this debate about if they should just fight to the end or live to fight another day. And the guy pretty much changes his mind in like 10 seconds. And I think that's a really interesting philosophical debate to have. But the show kind of strays away from it. And I would say it opts out for a more kiddie arc
where they just put these little sewer squid things on themselves and pretend they have a disease, and they all just run. And then you get these shenanigans with the baby like toddling off and ending up with them. This episode felt really kiddie to me, especially when it started off where it could have had like an interesting philosophical, and instead it kind of chose to just avoid it. So I thought the choice to bring in Azula much more heavy this season was smart, because then you have Aang as your protagonist, Zuko is your antagonist, but also kind of his own protagonist, and then Azula is just a straight up villain. Like, she's just evil through and through. So I thought that was a really smart choice. I think it's part of what makes Zuko best character also, is that he's on both ends of it. But this is something I complained about last season. I'm going to go ahead and bring it up now. That because of the nature of this sort of Saturday morning cartoon villain with the Fire Nation, you do end up with the thing again where the Fire Nation shows up almost every episode, but then loses every episode that they're in, or the heroes escape at least. That kind of undermines their threat as a nation. But I guess that's sort of just built into the structure of a kid's show. I'm not really sure how you could fix that without drastically changing it. Episode 4 and 5 for me were kind of misses also. 4 was more of just nothing. The swamp. Like, yeah, we get to see what they each miss and whatever, but it really wasn't necessary to spend a whole episode on that. The only thing I would give that episode credit for is seeing different types of waterbenders. Beyond that, that episode was kind of a nothing. Then episode 5 with Avatar Day, I thought could have been pretty interesting to see him have to kind of be held accountable for his past actions, or at least that's how it seems to me with how resurrection works in this world. But they kind of opt out of that and do like the whole Sokka is Sherlock thing, and then kind of make a joke out of it. Then instead you get kind of a commentary on bureaucracy and just how unreasonable it can be. And that's something that actually is reiterated throughout the season. So episode 5 was better than 3 and 4, but it felt like another missed opportunity to me. For me, the season was good all the way up until the episode that's kind of a montage of their day-to-day thing. And then you get an entire Appa episode, which really felt unnecessary and fillery to me. So this episode was the Tales of Ba Sing Se. On Netflix, it's listed as 14, but they did a weird thing where they combined a couple episodes into one. I think it's actually 15. But either way, this episode to me felt like a bunch of little sequences that could have either been completely removed or added into other episodes. But the two strong points of this one were Katara and Toph doing their little girls' day out makeup bonding thing, and we get to see Iroh really grieving his son, I would say for the first time. It's always implied, and then obviously you have the dynamic between him and Zuko, where Iroh's the replacement father for Zuko, and Zuko's kind of the replacement son for Iroh. Yeah, this episode to me, like the whole Aang starting a zoo and Sokka having a freestyle haiku battle thing with some lady, all completely irrelevant and really just unnecessary and felt like filler. But I did like this little bonding moment between the two girls, and I liked Iroh's moment grieving for his son. One thing I would say about this part with Toph and Katara is they kind of come across as dicks here to me. Like, yeah, these girls are being catty about Toph, but then they use their bending powers to dump them in the water and like tidal wave them away, which, you know, they're supposed to be the heroes of the story, so I'm not sure if that was the best decision. I mean, at least Toph dumping them in the water is just kind of like, fuck them, that's what they get. But then when Katara uses her water bending to just wash them away with a big wave, they could have drowned. And it's kind of bordering on just using your bending powers to bully, which is not very hero-esque. And then the other episode for me, and this might have been the worst one of the season, was Appa's Lost Days. This is not something that we needed a whole episode for. Like, yeah, they brought in Suki and got to see him drift around and whatever. Maybe if this deserved anything, when Appa and Aang reunited, it could have been like a 30-second montage. This to me felt like they just didn't have any ideas. We're like, let's just do an Appa episode. Yeah, very eh. But the season ended strong. We got to see Zuko free Appa. He's really questioning if what he's doing is right, but it still ends with him being unable to shake off living in his father's shadow, and he hasn't quite outgrown, you know, prioritizing wanting to make his dad proud over what he actually wants. And then they killed Jet, which I was really surprised by. Because Jet wasn't like a main character, but he'd appeared before, so you at least know him by name. So I thought that was kind of ballsy. Probably a good choice to actually kill someone. But yeah, so we get to see the season end. We're kind of at a low point for the heroes, which, you know, it's basic storytelling structure. Another thing in here that I'm not sure how it affects the world building is the stuff with Toph bending metal. I understand the justification behind it, but that creates kind of an issue where you're like, okay, well, however long this civilization has existed, no one else has bent metal. They've been using metal prisons and restraints and stuff forever. So that kind of seemed like them just pulling a horseshoe out of their ass. To me. But yeah, overall, really good season. As far as the live action goes, man, they are gonna butcher this. this season really leaned in to the Aang Katara relationship to the point where he just outright says that he loves her. And, you know, when he's going through his chakras, she's the one that's kind of causing the snag because he can't let her go. And unless the show does a lot of legwork in season 2, I don't feel like that dynamic has been really touched on at all in live action. And if it was, they certainly didn't nail it. So my guess for the live action is that they might actually just make them like best buddies and not do any kind of romantic thing between, which is a shame because it's a pretty crucial part of the story. There's not really any reason to get rid of it other than just this general weird thing where they don't want romance to be a part of the story. But yeah, I can definitely see why people like this show so much. I agree with everyone who said it gets better with each season. Well, at least from season 1 to 2. I was a little bit frustrated by some of the filler, but, you know, I guess they just didn't have enough story and they had 20 episodes to fill. Kind of is what it is. But yeah, I think this was pretty good. I'll be watching season 3 soon. I'm recording this video during my copyright strike. You won't see it until the copyright strike is hopefully gone, about a week and a half here. And then by that point, hopefully I'll either have seen season 3 or at least be midway through or whatever. But yeah, this was a good recommendation from Zeyga. That's what I'll be doing for his member request. I got a couple more members when I live streamed the other day. So if there's something you'd like me to review or watch, just become a member, put it in a comment. As long as I acknowledge it, you'll know that I saw it and that I'll do it. And yeah, let me know what you thought of the show if you've seen it. Like and subscribe and all that. I try to respond to all the comments. Thanks. See ya.